Good morning, everybody. Ninth grade Algebra 1. We're starting our first section of Chapter 11, and this is on the real numbers. And as I've told you many times, the real number system is what we work on in Algebra 1. When you get to Algebra 2, you get introduced to the imaginary numbers. You're so lucky. But anyway, right now, we're going to continue talking about the real numbers. Real numbers, of course, branch off into the rationals, which we have talked about in the past, and the irrationals, okay? For our definitions, we know that rationals are ratios or quotients of integers. So obviously they can be positive, negative, okay? Irrational numbers we're going to know will be decimals that do not terminate and do not repeat. So our examples, of course, would be pi. We know that that's represented as 3.14, but that's just a symbol or a sample, an approximation, excuse me. All right, we also know that it's going to be radicals, square roots that won't come out from underneath, okay? There is no number in the world that times itself will give me 2. So, radical 2 is an irrational number. Radical 50, okay, I know 50 has factors, but they're not the number times itself that would give me 50. 25 times 2 are different numbers, okay? So these are examples of irrationals, rationals. So today, we're going to really talk about the square roots, the principal square root in general, okay, the highlighted one. So I want you to look on page 482, okay? And we know that the square root of 25 is 5. Okay, that's the square root. What times itself gives me this radicand. Remember, what's underneath the radical is our radicand. And this, of course, is the principal square root. Now, we know that radical 25 could also be a negative 5 because negative 5 getting squared could be 25, correct? If we want to indicate the negative solution, it'll have a minus out in front, okay? So in this case, we'd say minus. So we are aware that the square roots of 25 would be 5 and negative 5, but we're going to list them appropriately. If there's a negative, we want the opposite of this answer, so negative 5. Radical 25, you're just going to go ahead and give the principal, okay? So if the question asks, what are the square roots of 25, you'd say plus, minus 5. If you are just given the square root of 25 without a negative sign, you're going to go ahead and give me 5. So, sorry about that. All right, so let's look at the examples. If you see example 1, it says find the square roots of 81. So you'd say 9 and negative 9. Then example 2, the square root of 225. Okay, the way that's written, you're just indicating the principal square root. So you're just going to tell me 15. But on example 3, it says the opposite or negative radical 64. So in this case, I would write negative 8. Okay, so you understand the 3 differences. They may ask, what are the square roots of 81? So then you would list plus, minus 9. Okay, radical 225, that's telling me the principal square root. So just give me 15. And here we want the opposite. Okay, so you're going to do the try this. You can stop the video, do the try this, and then we'll check them. Okay, so try this A, the square roots of 169 plus 13 and negative 13. You don't have to put the plus with the positive. You can just say 13, negative 13, or you could write plus minus 13, okay? So the answer to try this A, plus or minus 13. All right, try this B. We want the opposite. Let's see. Gonna have problems with the pen. Okay, the opposite of radical 100. So this answer is negative 10. And then for C, the square root of 256, that's letting me know I want the principal square root, so just 16. Okay, now I did already talk to you about the rational numbers. You can read the lesson carefully, but let's proceed on to the next portion, which is to determine if a number is rational or irrational. So example 4, it says radical 3. So obviously there's no number that multiplied by itself gives me this. So I would say irrational. You can just put an I, or you can put IRR, whatever you want, okay? The next one, example 5, radical 25. Okay, that's a perfect square, right? So that is rational because we know that answer. We know what number multiplied by itself will give us 25. Okay, the next one, radical 35, that's irrational. And example 7, as you see, the opposite of radical 49 would be negative 7. All right, so here let's try this, D through G. Stop the video. All right, so for D, you should have irrational. E, negative 6, so that's rational. F is irrational, and G is irrational. Now the last part of this lesson, very simple, is to approximate radicals. Okay, now when you're approximating, this is where you're going to use your calculator. Okay, if I want the approximation of radical 10, that's irrational, but I can put that into my calculator, 10 and the radical symbol, and it will tell me approximately 3.162, okay? And it'll tell you that the questions in the book will ask you whether to round to the tenths or round to 3 decimal places. Okay, I think the lesson today is going to say round to the thousandths place. So tenths, hundredths, thousandths, okay? And so we'll look at the 4th place and know whether to round it up or leave it alone. And remember, we're going to put our little curvy equal because it's an approximation. So that's the word you use when you are going to use your calculator. Okay, if it says simplify, and we've already learned that. Simplify, we're going to simplify. We're going to pull out the perfect square one. So we're going to work on that more later. But right now, you're going to determine if things are rational or irrational. You're going to give me the roots if they ask, and use your calculator to approximate. Okay, gang. So today, you're going to work on page 485, and this is all on RenWeb. You're just going to do 1 to 31 odd, so you can check your answers in the back. You're going to work on 41 to 43 odd, and you're going to work on 53 to 67 odd. So do your best, check your answers after you've made an attempt, and then if you have questions tomorrow, we'll talk during our Zoom time. Hopefully everybody's going to check in there with me. If you have no questions, you can just send me an email that you're fine. I need to hear from you so I can take roll. But if you have any questions, you want to check in there, it would really be good to check in. You can say hello and hang right back up, but it'll be our forum to talk together. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.